You know how Citaro bendy buses were largely common in central London, operating 12 busy radial routes? But what if I told you that there are other types of bendy buses in London, one being the Volvo B7LA Hispano Carrocera Demonstrator. It took me about 15 attempts to pronounce that word, by the way. It was operated by Stagecoach East London on Route 25. Visually, the Volvo counterpart looks slightly identical, only apart from the front of the bus, which in my opinion looks absolutely ugly. Ew, brother, ew.
What's that, brother?
Upon further research, the interior of the bus indicates that this was also operated by London Central. That is because this same bus was also on Route 507. But what happened to this bus? In 2005, it had a new lease of life in Edinburgh, operated by Lothian Buses. 2 years later, it went down to Manchester Airport, operating a shuttle service. I was very curious if this bus was still in service, and the confirmation is still unknown. My guess is this bus probably have been scrapped. Since it's a demonstrator, if it's still in service to this day, then that is a miracle. Did you know that the London Underground have British Rail class numbers? Well, sort of. It's only in specific areas like Queen's Park to Harrow and Wealdstone, East Putney to Wimbledon, or Gunnersbury to Richmond. The reason for this is the London Underground network operate on network rail tracks for part of their journey. Another reason why only a few Bakerloo line trains terminate at Harrow and Wealdstone. The London Underground Class 499 fall into different subclasses. The 499-2 is for Bakerloo Line's 1972 tube stock, 499-5 is for District Line S7 stock. However, the District Line had more subclasses. The 499-0 was for the main D78 stock until withdrawn in 2017, whilst the 499-1 was for the C stock for Putney to Wimbledon until withdrawn in 2014. The Class 499 is a Total Operations Processing System, TOPS for short, designation allocated to London Underground electric multiple units, but this class number is very obscure as it falls into the miscellaneous units. One day, Route 188 had a band working. During the first day of the SL4 being in service, I encountered what I thought was a rare working, but it turns out it is a band working. Apparently, someone trespassed into Modern Wharf Garage and mixed up the running numbers. This banned vehicle in particular is an Enviro 400 Alexander Dennis diesel. The 188 normally operates Gemini 3 hybrids or possibly an Evo SETI because the route travels within the ULEZ zone, meaning diesels are a big no-no for Go Ahead London. The E400 diesel was in fact meant to be on Route 51. The most damning part is this bus was going through maintenance because it was registered vehicle off-road. The driver then unknowingly took this vehicle on the route with no blinds whatsoever. It did one round from North Greenwich to Tottenham Court Road. Upon further research, because I'm a nerd, this is a former Abellio bus from Battersea which used to operate Route C2, rest in peace. Now, 188 did operate Enviro 400s when operated by Abellio, albeit with hybrid variants instead. But anyways, because this banned working, Go Ahead London got fined £7,500 by TfL, even though they had nothing to do with this. So the person who is behind all this has basically thrown them under the bus. Shameful. In May 2011, Route 541 ran a temporary shuttle from Canning Town to Keir Hardie Estate, replacing Route 241 between Canning Town and Prince Regent. It ran for a year and a month until it was withdrawn. But that isn't the end of the story, because 4 months later, Route 541 was reinstated by Stagecoach, operating from West Ham Garage until March 2013. It was withdrawn again. 6 months go by, and the surprise is 541 being reintroduced again under a new company, Go Ahead London Dockland Buses, from Silvertown Garage. Still operating from Keir Hardie Estate to Prince Regent until May 2015, the route was passed to Blue Triangle under the name of Go Ahead London. But then in October 2015, the route was withdrawn for the third time. But it's not over, because during February 2016, the route briefly ran for 3 days until it was finally withdrawn. Unlike all other temporary routes which come once, Route 541 had the lucky straw and kept persisting, all because of assisting Route 241's temporary withdrawal. The 241 now runs from Silvertown Royal Wharf to here east in Hackney Wick. I made a video about riding the 241's extension. Be sure to check that out on YouTube. TfL is at it again because routes 205 and 30 have been changed. Originally, 205 ran from Bowchurch to Paddington, whilst Route 30 ran from Hackney Wick to Marble Arch. Until In June, Route 30 has sadly been cut back to Euston, whilst 205 is nominated to make up for the loss. Why are they doing this? Because that's what TfL does at best. But don't worry, routes 18 and 27 remains intact, meaning you can quickly change from 30 at Euston and get Route 18 to continue along towards Paddington. Alternatively, you could get the Elizabeth line from Liverpool Street to Paddington, which is proven to be quicker than the tube, or get the Central line to Marble Arch. Just don't get it in peak hours. Now everyone knows the disastrous bus cuts taken over, but I bet half of you don't know that 205 was planned to be rerouted up to Parliament Hill Fields, replacing routes 88 and partial 214. Thankfully that never happened. The origin of 205 was to replace the SL1. No, not the super stupid. This instead, the Station Link route. It ran from Liverpool Street to Paddington via King's Cross, along with SL2 doing the journey anti-clockwise. Fun fact, Route 30 is currently operated by Metroline, and 205 is operated by Stagecoach. But did you know both of their roles were swapped in the past? Meaning Route 30 was operated by Stagecoach, and the 205, when it first entered service, was operated by Metroline. In present day, the roles are reversed. Apparently, this is an Enviro 400 EV, second generation. You see, most people call this an Enviro 400 EV, but that's wrong. It's an Enviro 400 EV City instead, because the bodywork is based on the Enviro 400H City, the H standing for hybrid. Did you know that Arriva the Shires used to operate London buses? The bus garage was located at Garston, near Watford. The vehicles they used were slightly similar to the ones Arriva London had. Example, here's a side-by-side comparison of the Gemini 3. The Shires version is a diesel, whilst the London version is a hybrid. Or perhaps, look at this Enviro 400. The one on the left is the Shires, whilst the one on the right is London. The Shires didn't have a jet engine at the back. And no, Arriva London typically never operated Optare solos. The first Optares they had was a Metro City EV for Route 312 instead. Arriva the Shires operated 12 routes, along with another 8 school routes. At the end of December 2015, the London operations was merged into Arriva London until late August 2018. The garage permanently shut down, whilst all the routes were passed to London Sovereign and Metroline respectively. Route 305, however, did not make it, as it was replaced by Route 303. Arriva clinged on to Route 340. The route and the vehicles was allocated to Palmer's Green garage, but the major problem was the distance between Edgware and Palmer's Green. But Arriva persisted until September 2023, when they finally gave in, and it was passed to London Sovereign in Edgware. Arriva mainly uses Gemini 2 VDL DB300, a successor to the legendary DAF DB250s. Did you know First Group and Go Ahead London once operated VDL DB300s? First Group operated a dozen of these, and more importantly operated the Gemini 2 HEVs on Route 328. Go Ahead London only had one, and it operated out of Stockwell Garage. The Gemini 2 HEV ran on 328 until June 2013. But where did all the vehicles go, you ask? The Go Ahead London variant was allocated to Merton for Route 270, until eventually it was sent off to carousel buses in High Wycombe. Whilst most of the first bus variants have been scrapped, except two. One was sent to Vision buses in Bolton, and the other was preserved. First Group and Go Ahead London commonly used Volvo B90L, a successor to the Wrightbus Volvo B70L. In the end, there is no competition, because Arriva London does it best. You know those B90Ls that are on Route SL7? Well, what if I told you that they were from these routes? Yeah, that's right. The East London Transit once had their own B90L, different to the Go Ahead London's counterpart. It was only until 2017 the vehicles were replaced by new route masters. The ELT B90Ls crossed the Thames from Rainham to Croydon on Route X26, now SL7, and converted it to single door, thus allowing more luggage space, since this express route runs from Heathrow and is extremely busy. Everyone knows the Hydroliner on Route 7 and sometimes 245 operated by Metroline. But Metroline isn't the first company to acquire hydrogen buses in London. That honour falls into first group. They started with the Citaro fuel cell buses on route RV1 and sometimes 25 respectively. In 2010, RV1 had a new fleet of hydrogen buses, namely the Wright Pulsar 2 bodied VDL DB300 hydrogen powered, and this dominated the streets of London. The RV1 was one of the best routes for sightseeing on a shoestring, according to the Daily Telegraph. In 2018, Tower Transit bought 2 Van Hool hydrogen fuel cells to increase capacity. Until 2019, RV1 was withdrawn. Both hydrogen buses went on Route 444 later on. Until 2020, the route was snatched by Go Ahead London. Comment down if you know where these hydrogen buses ended up. Throwback to when TfL introduced colour-coded routes in East London. It consists of 7 routes from Arriva and Stagecoach. Its main purpose was to increase usage of the allocated buses. The trial also introduced the promotion of the £1.50 fare hopper and the daily capped fare of £4.50 to help promote the convenience of using the bus to customers. Each bus also had its dedicated time of when it would arrive. The trial lasted for only 6 months. The main problem was the vehicles they were using were only on the branded routes. For an example, if one broke down, the service would be compromised. Even though this trial ended years ago, some buses on Route 150 still keeps this branding. And yes, I know they did the same colour-coded thing in the West as well. Throwback to when Route 26 went to Waterloo. This route came in clutch when the Waterloo and City line wasn't in service. April 2023, the route was changed to go to Victoria to help the partial loss of Route 11, which now runs to Waterloo! 26 used to be operated by Stagecoach, then it was passed to First Group and Tower Transit respectively, until somewhere around 2016 passed to CT Plus or Hackney Community Transport. But then Hackney Community Transport went bust and Stagecoach bought all the assets, meaning 26 is technically back to Stagecoach. Man, we are living in a weird timeline. London's first ever electric bus was a BYD on routes 507 and 521, not 360. Instead, the 360 operated hybrids. This is a BYD K9E and it operated out of Waterloo Garage to compete with the existing Citaros. My favourite part of the bus is the motor. I mean, take a listen. Due to the BYD's success, Alexander Dennis teamed up and made probably the most eye-catching badass electric bus in London. To this day, there are 484 Enviro 200 EVs and 653 Enviro 400 City EVs. In total, that is 1,137. BYD is the cornerstone of electric buses. But where did the first one go? Well, bus enthusiasts do what they do at best. One is preserved at the Brooklands. Did you know the bus can sometimes kneel? This is to help the disabled for easy access. Everyone knows the green ghetto trams in the ghetto vibe of Croydon. But did you know there was going to be another tram elsewhere in London? In 2007, TfL proposed the Cross River tram. It would have started from Camden Town and worked its way down to Brixton or Peckham via crossing the Thames, hence the name. Unfortunately, this ambitious plan was stopped in its tracks by the then London Mayor Boris Johnson. Even though London is doing fine with the one tram service we have in Croydon, but it would have been fun to see another. Trams in Croydon are usually green, and this suits the theme of Croydon. But did you know the trams were red? The London Tramlink was known as the Croydon Tramlink, taking its cue from Thameslink, and it was operated by First Group, which is why some trams had the First Group livery. In 2008, TfL bought Tramlink Croydon for £98 million. During that year, TfL completely overhauled the trams from red to green and blue to differentiate them from the buses. Also, Croydon Tramlink was rebranded Tramlink. The rebrand was completed in 2009. Despite this change, First Group continued to operate the service on behalf of TfL. And now, the Tramlink is 25 years old. Comment down if you prefer the red than the green. Have you ever heard this sound? Well, this sound is very common on electric buses. The reason is to help the visually impaired to help alert that there is a vehicle nearby, because their motors are very silent. So that's why an artificial sound was a good idea. This artificial sound was first trialled on Route 100 in 2021. The people behind this sound goes by the name Denzel'S. They've made a YouTube video explaining the lore behind all this. Did you know that the London Underground S-Dock have smaller doors at the front and end of the train? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Until then, you take it easy. Everyone knows the dreaded walk in Green Park Station that takes ages, specifically changing from Jubilee to Piccadilly line or vice versa. But there's a secret. If you look at the mosaic in between the Jubilee and the Piccadilly line, you can tell how far you are from one based on how many blue or grey squares there are. Almost works like a progress bar. You know how some tube trains have door buttons? Well, what if I told you you often had to press these buttons to open the doors, or they would stay closed? However, this was deemed impractical. They later bypassed that function to automatically open the doors, as it wasn't efficient for rush hour. In fact, most of them had the buttons replaced with door indicators. The Central, Jubilee and Waterloo and City lines still have door buttons, but they are redundant. The subsurface S-Dock trains are only useful when the doors close automatically after 45 seconds. This helps keep the climate control working effectively. You can still open the doors after it being closed. Fenchurch Street Station is the only isolated National Rail terminus in London. Now hear me out, all other London terminus has a London Underground interchange, like Liverpool Street, Waterloo, King's Cross and St Pancras, Euston, Cannon Street, Charing Cross, Victoria, and hell, even Marylebone. But Fenchurch Street is the odd one out because it technically doesn't have an interchange, even though Tower Gateway and Tower Hill are close to each other and have directions to get there via street level. But it's not interchangeable, like all other terminuses in London. Also, Route 40 used to go past Fenchurch Street Station to Aldgate until 2019. It was rerouted to Clerkenwell Green! This change resulted in Fenchurch Street being left without a bus service. Fenchurch Street Station is operated by C2C, and sometimes they run services from the predominant Liverpool Street Station, making Fenchurch Street obsolete. London Underground trains were originally unpainted, giving off an eerie appearance. But this is bad. During late 80s and early 90s, a major problem arose from an epidemic of graffiti vandalism, defacing trains in particular, almost like painting over an empty canvas. The trains would leave visible marks even when they're cleaned afterwards. So, London Transport unveiled 3 striking new corporate liveries to discourage graffiti. And after many votes, this became the corporate livery. And this is the iconic signature London Underground corporate livery that symbolises the London Underground network. Oh, by the way, the graffiti vandals didn't stop. The last time we saw the London Underground C-Stock, the seating was mainly longitudinal and spacious. When it first entered service, it was transverse. Back in the day, most tube trains had a mixture of transverse and longitudinal seating. It was only until these trains were overhauled in 1990, giving them only longitudinal seats. This is done to maximise standing space, because the London Underground is extremely busy. The Bakerloo still has transverse seats, for a vintage throwback, and the Metropolitan line has a mixture as well, but that's for another video. National Rail trains have only transverse seating, because they're designed for long journeys that goes outside London. London Underground, on the other hand, is a rapid transit system. Comment down what you prefer. Until then, you take it easy. Boris buses have 3 doors, but the main idea was to have every Boris bus a rear folding door. The reason? Well, it's because of tradition, and the genius idea of folding both doors wide open en route. These buses would normally have a handrail for the supervisor, simulating the good old days of route masters. And because the rear door was always open, passengers benefit from the hop-on and hop-off feature. Unfortunately, the new Mayor Sadiq Khan cancelled this in summer 2016, considering this was an expensive gimmick, costing an eye-watering £294 million to order the buses, and plus it costs money to employ additional staff. So from LT517 to 1000, they reverted to a rear sliding door. LT2 is wrapped in green, to give a heritage callback to when green country buses used to roam around London. This makes perfect sense on the 313, because back in 1985, the route was transferred to London Country until 1988. But don't be fooled, because this same bus can also be on the 349! What? Comment down if you think that's fair. Until then, you take it easy. See you later. Sue!